up, everybody? Welcome back to Preacher's Hour. This is the first episode of 2024. First episode of season 6.
Oh, shoot.
Which is wild. I'm, if you don't know, I'm Jeff Copeland, one of your hosts.
John Drodos here, as always.
The pastor himself.
Glad to be here.
And we had a lot of people like, well, who's the guest? You guys hyped them up on your last episode.
We did legitimately had a bunch of people ask us.
Well, who is it? Well, guys, you won't be disappointed.
Sure.
If you are, man, you don't know what you're talking about.
Facts.
We got, should we say Dr. Peter Smith?
What are you comtemple with?
Yeah.
That'd be the appropriate title.
That's right.
Okay.
We want to be appropriate here, guys. So
Titles are not...
forget the Mennonite stuff. Get rid of it.
This is Dr. Peter Smith.
Amen.
He's a great guy. He goes to our church. He's on our teaching team, whether he knows that or not. And we are just blessed to have him, and we're excited to hear what he has to say about our topic for this month. And yeah, man. So first of all, I always like to do this. John, how you doing today? I know you had a long day.
It's guys, by the way, like we were pretty transparent on here. I think you might need to turn it down still a little bit.
Me?
We in real time, guys.
Okay.
Yep, the authenticity
Sorry,
and
I'll be
vulnerability.
real loud.
So yeah, it is late right now, and we're currently recording this, and it was a long day for myself and I believe probably others. But we're still excited to go ahead and be here to be able to open up the new season. As we promised, consistency is about to start ramping up.
Yes.
Currently right now, and we're crossing our fingers, we are currently also recording video.
Yeah, you should be seeing us. I'm looking right at you.
Yep. Looking at them. Yep. I see everyone. So I'm excited for that. I even told someone, I was like, hey, I'll send you the video because they're like, I'll listen to it if there's video incorporated. So there we go. So if you're that person, here you go.
You're watching.
Promise is being fulfilled, right? But I'm excited. And especially now, let's go back to our guest we have.
Peter, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. Honored to be on the show with you guys. Do you call it a show? Podcast?
Yeah.
The show might be...
What are we going to call it?
Whatever. You're the
want.
doctor here. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
This is my first time on a podcast, I think.
Oh.
What?
But hey...
official.
I'm a little old, so this is new technology for me.
Man, okay. So, John, what's the topic, man? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So the topic overall, we're going to be coming back to, and just a heads up, this will be a 2-part episode. So that's something exciting to look forward to. And it's going to be, should we trust the Bible? And at the same time, we're going to get the opportunity to hear from the doctor himself with us and a little bit about his story and his life. But I would like to kind of even throw this in there at the very beginning, because the question is, why did we want to have Peter on here, right? And the more we've gotten the opportunity to hear more about his story, his life, his experiences, I think there's a whole lot that, I've already learned. I was actually, I think, here you go. You're getting some of the transparency right now in person, right? Yeah. I was even telling Jeff, I've been really appreciative actually the last month or so, because I think even though it's been a blessing to have a young church in this season that we're in, I think what I was starting to realize that I was kind of like literally missing out on a lot of different levels was having someone who was seasons ahead of me, who could actually give me wisdom, give me advice, things that I could glean, or even just someone I could go, actually, I know I could trust if I needed to talk through something, and so to be able to have people like yourself as well to come through and has been in different sort of fields and things like that, I've been really appreciative of. And so definitely to open up the year with you on the podcast is super exciting for myself. So we're glad you're here.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we're talking about the Bible. Like, should we trust it? Like, why should we trust it?
Yeah.
I
was going to say even this, cause so open up. Why are we talking about this?
Yeah. We kind of hinted at this in the review, yearly review episode, but just, we've gotten a lot of people asking us questions about this topic. Like, I've heard this, or I saw this on TikTok or whatever. Like, how do we know we can trust the Bible? Like, there's just all these questions. And what about, like, I heard this argument, and so it's like, all right, we heard enough people that we need to do an episode on this, because this is, people keep asking. And shameless plug, no shame at all in plugging this. Peter and I are launching our Bible class. What is the Bible? You guys are going to hear this episode audibly. It'll be available on Monday. So the first class would have already happened. But it's a 6-week class at TG. If you're in Fresno and you want to go to TG, you should come from 9 a.m. to 9:50 for the next 6 weeks. We'll be breaking down, the basics, like the approach to the Bible, all those kind of like timeline, like language, all that type of stuff, the canon, all that type of questions people have about the Bible. We'll be going through that together. So I encourage you guys to come. I forgot what I was going to say after that.
Now back to.
Well, so yeah. So first thing we want to do before we even like jump into the topic itself, we kind of want to hear your story, Peter, in relation to the topic, but also just like whatever you feel like sharing, because I always feel like, at least for me, when I'm listening to a podcast, if I connect with the people on there, it helps me not only retain what they're saying, but I don't know, it just makes it more human. The best part of a podcast when you feel like you're in the room with the people. So, I mean, yeah, man, like, who are you and whatever you want to share with your family background, where you from. I know you were a hooper, so I know you can. I know Sean told me he got jumper, like he can really shoot. John knows nothing about that. He's not a hooper at all.
Come on, man.
You're a football guy.
You right.
You would destroy me at that. But
that's facts.
Yeah, but yeah, man, like, all the who, what, when, where, why that you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, we'll figure this out in terms of how long do I go?
Yeah.
What needs to be said? What? Yeah, you guys can move it along.
Yeah,
give me the
feel
signal
free.
or whatever. But yeah, what can I say? So I grew up in a Christian family.
Okay.
I grew up in Spokane, Washington.
Oh,
So I'm a Pacific Northwest guy.
baby.
Mm-hmm.
My brother lives in Portland, so
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
Honorary
why are you
Pacific
so excited about that? Anyway, go ahead.
And Spokane is this bigger city on the east side of the state. Most people are like, "Oh, it's from Seattle, right?" Like, no, it's not. And there's kind of a difference. But
Gonzaga's in Spokane.
Gonzaga's in
That's
Spokane.
right.
That's right. Yep. And yeah, so I was born and raised there. But my older sister went to Biola, and when she did that, I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll look in California for university, and found my way to Fresno Pacific because I wanted to play basketball.
Nice. Love it.
That's part of my story. Is I thought I was a good enough player to play in college and wanted to play in college, and I played a little bit, but I was mostly good for the team and good for the bench.
Nice.
Hey,
listen. That was me in high school.
Not a great scorer, not a great whatever, but I'm a good team player, and yeah. And there's a whole story that I can tell, a longer story sometime, probably about how I got to Fresno Pacific and how that was an answer to prayer, actually. That I was wrestling with God about what's my future going to hold, where am I going?
Yeah.
I thought I'd really want to do this, and Gonzaga didn't want to have me. And I was like, okay, that's too big a school for me. All right.
So great.
But yeah, there's Whitworth, and they were like, hey, come play for us. But Whitworth, I was like, college is not 10 minutes from your house for me. Probably because my sister went away or something.
Right.
And maybe because my dad went to University of Washington across the state
Husky.
too. So
Okay.
I always had this idea that college is someplace you go to that's you have to at least drive a couple hours to get to.
Oh,
And I know that's not everybody's experience, but that was kind
it
of
wasn't
my
mine. Anyway.
So,
Hey, JUCO product right
Yeah.
here.
I know.
Not
COS?
ashamed. JUCO. Hey, whatever the S. BS, whatever. I'm a
That's
JUCO
great.
product, okay, and
Love
I'm proud
it.
about that.
Love it.
yeah. Well, I was a little. I didn't want to do the JUCO route. So they wanted me to come there too, and I was like, no, that's not college for me. I'm going bigger.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The FPU was actually bigger, but it was far away. It kind of counted like that, and gave me a chance to play. So I played for 3 years there, which was 1 year too many. I should have gotten out after my sophomore year, but coach talked me into staying with the team for my junior year. And then I finally got out and said, it had become a job.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
I'm
Definitely.
clocking into practice. I'm clocking into the weight
Definitely.
room, and they're always saying, you got to do more. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do any more. I'm just not enjoying it anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hung up my basketball shoes when COVID hit, and have not played a game of basketball since then.
Man.
What? Come on now.
You got to get them back.
I got guys saying,
retirement.
oh, you should come back
got
out
to
and
get them
play.
back in.
I need to get myself out of retirement first, and then we can
You
get-
right. You right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's some basketball there. I met Cheryl at Fresno Pacific.
Cheryl is who to you?
Cheryl's my wife.
Okay, awesome.
Doctor.
Doctor also. Don't get it
Anyway.
twisted.
Dr. Cheryl Duick Smith. Yeah. And she was a year ahead of me. We met, dated throughout. We met as soon as I arrived at the school. We dated throughout our college years and got married right after college.
Nice.
So yeah, very, very young. But it's worked out for us.
Gotta love it.
I don't always encourage people to get married young, but I'm not saying do or don't. Just it always takes discernment, right?
Yeah.
When's the right time? Who's the right
Speaking
person?
to the choir.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
100%.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, we wanted to invite you to partner with us in this ministry. Preachers Hour needs your support.
In order to make more and better content, we need you, yes, you listening to this right now, to become a patron.
Choose the tier that best fits your preferences and help us make theology for our context.
Thanks, and enjoy this episode.
even younger than that, perhaps. And I have this story. I remember having a theological discussion with my friends, but I think I'm probably like 10 or 11. And you know the nature of theological discussions at that point.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to put this out there. This may get edited out. We'll see.
Nothing gets edited on here.
So, you know, at a 10 or 11-year-old, I'm beginning to find out about sex.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I got some friends who also are with me, you know, and we're at a friend's house one day, and the friends were like, "There's sex in the Bible, you know." And I'm like, "No, that's kind of
Pretty
strange
positive
activity that I don't think so."
There's no way that.
And they're like, "Well, what do you think this means?" And I'm like, "Well, I read the Bible, and it says he went and lay with her, and she conceived." And I'm like, so to me, in my literalist 10-year-old brain, I'm like,
I love it.
There was some kind of thing, like if you just laid in the same bed, something
show up.
happened.
Right.
But it couldn't be this thing that I'm learning about, like bodies coming together. And
That is so, dude. So like, I don't even know how old I was. It was probably like maybe a little younger than that. Probably like first, second grade.
Okay.
And you know, people started talking about sex as well, and I was like, "No, my parents didn't do that. There's another way. That's how we got here. They didn't do that. There's no way. I'm sorry, I couldn't. My brain was like, nah."
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So,
that's funny.
That's really funny.
I think all of us have, you know, that kind of first encounter. Like, wait a second, that really happens? That couldn't happen with these people, whether it's our parents or the Bible or somewhere and stuff.
That's good.
I remember arguing with my friends about that, and they're like, "No, man, this is what this means." And I'm like, "Oh, man."
I love that.
Then you read the Song of Solomon. And
I know. I'm like, oh.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
What is that?
That's what those things are.
Man, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we know where you're from now, which I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we know why you ended up in Fresno, which I always ask people who are not from Fresno, like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, get out. No, it's a great place. But so what did you study? And like, obviously you were influenced by your parents and your upbringing to like, you go to FPU, you go to a Christian school.
That's right.
And so like, what was your undergrad? And then like, what was your, like, obviously you have a PhD. So like,
Yeah.
take us through. Go
And
ahead.
even if I can even like, maybe you can help us understand fully too. Like, so when you say Christian upbringing, like what branch, what denomination, what kind of taste or flavor of Christianity were we talking about? Something like super fundamentalist and highly rigid and structured, or something just kind of like, just love people, love God.
Charismatic.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to
There's
throw
that
my
too.
charismatics, not
That's
having
you, bro.
discipline.
I'm
Hey,
trying
but
to-
what? Guys,
That's
don't.
your
I'm looking at
upbringing.
the camera. Don't listen to him. Love those cameras now.
That's great.
But yeah. So like maybe
Yeah.
helping us explain that, and then maybe is there like a different sort of introduction to something else once you came to Fresno? Like kind of walk us through a little bit of that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So my I was raised in what I guess I would call a non-denominational church. A Bible church is what it was like in the title, which I think is, you know, was fairly conservative, somewhat fundamentalist, but at least in some of the interpretations.
Sure.
Definitely.
But overall, I guess I kind of go, well, gave me a pretty healthy appreciation for Scripture, Christian living. People were instrumental, you know, as youth pastors, as Sunday school teachers, for kind of giving me guidance on this is how we live, this is how we do things. So yeah, coming to Fresno Pacific, it seemed to check the boxes. It's a Christian school. It's a good thing. I thought that's a place I can flourish. You know, their confession of faith, doctrinal statement. Kind of read through that and went, well, I recognize
Most of
these things
Yeah.
as important, right? And I don't even know if at that point that the Mennonite or Anabaptist peace position may have been in the confession. I don't know if that caught my eye at that point, but it certainly came to my attention as I was at Fresno Pacific longer.
Right.
And began to hear professors talk about this and chapel speakers and different things, kind of go, oh, there's people who are emphasizing this sense of we're not just supposed to live like the rest of the world in terms of when it comes to serving in the military or using violence or whatever. We think, at least think more critically about those things. Doesn't mean you rule all of it out, but you just have to kind of think, what are we doing here? And what does it mean to follow Jesus? Who does have our allegiance and our loyalty? Because when you give governments demand loyalty, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Is it possible to kind of do both, or do you have to choose one or the other?
Yeah.
And Christians have been wrestling with that for a long time, right? And finding different answers. So I was kind of drawn to this idea of peace being central to who Jesus is and his ministry. He was called the Prince of Peace, and yet his life is filled with so much conflict.
Right. Which tells us our definition of peace.
Yeah, right. So there's something strange is going on here, something interesting. So that became very important to me. I guess in some ways I would say I kind of became Anabaptist or Mennonite through my college experience, and said, yeah, this seems like a better expression for me than the evangelicalism that I was raised with.
Could you just put a pin in it for just a second? Like, help people understand what is these terms? Anna who? Like, what are you saying? Like, help us out. What does Anabaptism mean? And like, what is that exactly? Or how would you define it in a way that probably better explains what you would hold to or what you would agree with?
Okay. To do Anabaptism, you have to do a little history, right? Reformation movement. So 16th century, 1500s. The Reformation's going on in Europe. There are some people who are wanting to reform and want to do it radically, want to do it faster and in kind of radical ways. And Martin Luther himself was not a radical, and some of the people broke off from him. There's some other of the mainline kind of reformers. And they were being pushed and saying, no, we got to go slower. And these Anabaptists, these rebaptizers is what Anabaptism means. People who said you have to be baptized as an adult, which was a departure from the state church thing that said you got baptized as infants and that made you kind of part of the society. And they said, no, we think adult baptism is actually you choose to follow Jesus. And this is a symbol of that. And so adults ought to do that. And so they would then rebaptize people as adults. Now, I don't live or die by that particular doctrine. But a couple other things that they said were things like, and Jesus also told us not to swear oaths. And Jesus also tells us not to take up the sword, but to learn to love our enemies and so forth. And so the expectation that you are baptized and that you'll serve in the prince's or the king's army, that you'll swear an oath of allegiance or an oath that tries to, bind your word and make you a person of integrity. We shouldn't be doing those kinds of things. It's clear from Jesus' teaching. So this emphasis for me was a fresh emphasis on taking the words and the direction of Jesus very seriously. Making it central, and bringing some questions to some of the doctrines and practices of the church at the time. So for me, what Anabaptism means today, it means trying to take seriously following in the way of Jesus, loving my enemies, loving my neighbors.
And it's like really radical. Like it may be like you're hearing and you're like,
depends on who.
Doesn't everybody do that? And it's like,
it's meant to be radical.
Right. It's meant to be like very self-reflective. Like, okay, like how are we really going about this? And it's just being a little bit more intentional. Not that, other churches aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
I think for myself, and so I just finished 5 years in seminary at an Anabaptist seminary. And so I've got an opportunity to reflect, and I recognize how much those things have actually shaped me in certain thoughts when we come to scripture, which maybe we'll come back to.
Right.
And so for me, some of the things that really stood up heavily to me about Anabaptism is, yes, the sort of, the way in which we respond to the evils of the world. And when we talk about justice, what do we mean about those? And what is our response to the marginalized and those who are often the overlooked, And I think for someone of my background and of my upbringing, bringing a certain type of lens such as that to Scripture helps broaden and open up and actually offer invitations to a whole lot more people, as opposed to a much narrower sort of rigid view, like a lens, right? Where it's just the powerful and the elite that have the ability to access Jesus.
Right.
And this, for us, it begins to like, no, the Spirit is shared among all the community. Like the gifts are given freely to all people. And part of that also, again, is we are starting to have a care for tangible. It's like a holistic approach to actually faith, as opposed to simply just this cognitive thing that we theorize about and we talk about on a really highly academic level, even though I love doing that in certain spaces. But it's really boots on the ground. We care for those and we want to see Jesus really shown up. But also we recognize the true kingdom of God isn't necessarily going to be something that is fully seen here or something we have to force upon a whole nation to represent. And I'm comfortable with going far and speaking against nationalism. I know I'm usually the person who tries to keep the middle divide, but I think I'm starting to come to a place where I'm like,
plant your feet somewhere.
I think we have to really ask the question. We talk about the word you used, allegiance. Like, who is our devotion and commitment ultimately to? Is it the person of Jesus and the kingdom he brings? Or is it ultimately to these things of this world, which we find out, just like the Roman Empire thought they would never end? Unfortunately, it's called burning to the ground. I mean, like, we can keep going down these sort of things, and they're all going to only just last for a moment. Anyway, that was me on my tangent for a second. But
well said. Yeah, really well put. I think that kind of practical. Yeah, are we living this out? Does it show up in our lives? Does it do more than just give us a new way to think, or does it actually affect the way that I spend my money, the way that I treat other people on a regular basis?
Yeah. Does God have access to all parts of me?
Yeah. And I mean, I have to insert this a little bit because this is often categorized as like liberal, even this thought. And it's like even our approach and response to how we care for the earth.
Yeah.
And a lot of, for whatever, it's a weird thought within, like, I'll just use
politicized.
In evangelicalism within the States, it's like this, we don't care. We just tear up Texas, tear all the oil up. Like, who cares about the earth? It doesn't matter. God's going to, and that comes down to our understanding of Scripture and dispensationalism and everything else at the end of time. And I think it's messed up even our approach, because we have to recognize even in Genesis, I was talking to someone this morning, I just realized I'm on a soapbox.
Go ahead, John. You're on that box of soap.
But it's like, what do we look at? And we often use the language of cursed, right? And I get it's appropriate, but I would even use the word like consequence in the Genesis accounts, right? And what's a consequence? Is it just the people and God? Yes, they were removed from Eden, right, into the east. But also you see like the ground itself, the earth itself also receives a consequence because of our sin that we committed.
It's a break of relationships, including humanity's relationship with creation.
Yeah.
And we usually don't focus on that part. We usually focus on relationships with, most of you only talk about relationships, us and God.
Right.
There's also a break relationship with us and us and ourselves. So there's like this break within us that we don't fully relate to ourselves properly. So there's all these different breaks in relationships that happen. And just even saying that is more of an Anabaptist like view that I've learned being at an Anabaptist seminary myself as well.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, that was good, man. So
that's good stuff.
So you're at FPU. So what was your undergrad like major?
I was a history major.
That's why we get along, because I have a bachelor's in history as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's great. It
that's
shapes
cool.
your.
I didn't know that actually.
It's okay, John. You're missing out. No, I'm just kidding.
I have an organizational leadership.
Go ahead. That's why you be keeping me on track.
It's a JUCO product right here, boy. I'm not ashamed. The most basic degree you can get, but I have a bachelor's degree.
Come
okay,
on.
guys?
No, listen. That's an important degree, but that makes sense. Okay, I love that you have a history degree. I never thought about FPU doing degrees like that. Like I know they do, but I just didn't think about it. I'd love to talk to you another side about your experience in learning history there.
Sure.
Okay, so you get a history degree. Like, was that always your plan, or
no? I stumbled into it, and going off to college, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. Particularly, but so the way I stumbled into it was I had a great freshman fall and freshman spring. And I think it was the fall of my sophomore year, and I was like, school's not going so well. Like I was enjoying study for the most part. The life of the mind was starting to grab hold of me, which, wasn't happening for a lot of my basketball teammates. But that's where I was like, I don't really care about basketball so much. This is like, there's lots of stuff to learn. There's like, my world was opening and expanding for me. And that semester, I got to the end of the semester or somewhere in the semester and said, what's wrong with it? Like, what's going on in this semester? And I realized that I didn't have a history class. What it really had driven me or sparked me throughout my first 2 semesters was like, I had this history class that helped me think about my place in the world, understanding these big trends and so forth. And not having that, I went, well, I think that's what I want to do. Then I probably want to be a history major.
Nice.
By the end of my sophomore year, I declared that and then went forward. So, yeah.
That's really cool.
Stumbled on it that way.
Love it.
Yeah. So you guys are leaving, or not leaving. You guys are finishing up college, right? And
yes.
Now you completed. And then now it's like, all right, like most people who finish college, it's like, what do I do next?
What's
Did
next?
you have a plan? Did you guys have a plan at that point? Were you?
Well, we got married right at the end of college. The plan was, what do we do next? We were in a small group, and there was we thought, hey, we're young. It'd be a good thing to do some Christian service, volunteer, maybe go overseas. There's a thing called MCC, Mennonite Central Committee. That's a relief and development thing that is what Mennonites sometimes do. And we actually filled out applications for MCC. And we had trouble marking that we had many skills that would be useful for MCC, like doing relief and development work. You're like trying to, the skills they have listed are things like, can you farm? Can you help go to somewhere else in the world and help other people farm?
That's wow.
Are you a nurse? Like we're like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. We don't know about water. We don't know about that. We're college graduates. We should know something, but what do we actually know? And what can we offer to somebody on the other side of the world that would help them to improve their life, right? And so we kind of got intimidated by this checklist and went, I don't know if this is the thing for us. Plus, when you're just newly married, to go be dropped in the middle of some place where you're kind of like just the two of you, and not the romantic way of like a honeymoon. Like this is like work where you're
the Bahamas, Cancun.
Oh,
this is places where there's serious human need, and
right.
you're trying to help people. We're like, well, maybe that's not the best idea for us. So we backed off from that.
Okay.
But we were in a small group with some people who were saying, you know what? We think there's this mission thing going on, and they're going to try out a 1-year mission thing to Lithuania.
Wow.
And our small group kind of, as we were praying on it, one couple felt called, and we kind of felt called, and a single gal felt called to form a team and go with this thing and do this 1-year mission kind of thing. It was actually kind of, I don't know, less evangelism and more kind of supporting the local churches there so they could do their thing, right? 'Cause we don't speak that language and so forth. There's what can we offer? Well, we can teach some English classes. They want to learn English. This former Soviet republic was just coming out of the breakup of the Soviet Union in the mid-'90s here. And so they asked for, hey, we want to learn English. You can help build some of our capacity as we don't even have people who can be Sunday school teachers because they don't know the Bible that well. So you guys have been in Sunday school? Just tell us what you learned in Sunday school. Okay, yeah, we could do some of that. So we did that for a year and found ourselves overseas. That was a mixed bag, some good things we learned and also some hardship with the whole thing. Came back, and then Cheryl was ready to start her graduate school program at Fuller Seminary.
Yeah, which was in
Fuller.
Down in Pasadena.
Oh no, sorry. Degree like
marriage and family therapy.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. So she had applied for that, and then had been accepted, and then deferred that for a year so we could go overseas. So we moved from Fresno, from Lithuania, to Pasadena, and we were in Southern California for almost a decade.
Oh, wow.
So she did her degree. I kind of started my Master of Theology at Fuller as well.
Nice.
I was on the slow track. I kind of took a class every quarter for a number of years. And then finally got to a place where I said, I need to finish this thing off before the classes go stale and they start going, you need to start repeating things. Or you're taking new credits. And so that's what I did. And once I was finishing my degree, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm ready to get back on track with what I was wanting to pursue, which was I had the chance as a senior at FPU to be a teacher's assistant for one of the professors. And he surprised me a few weeks into the semester by saying, oh, by the way, I'm glad you're my TA. I'll be going to a conference in November and you'll be lecturing in the class.
Whoa.
And I was like, whoa, I'm not sure about that. And he's like, don't worry. I'll give you my notes and tell you what you're supposed to cover. And so I taught as a senior to the freshman ancient civ class or whatever, right? And when in that experience, I got good feedback. People were like, hey, I actually understood what you were saying, and I was like, I kind of liked putting this stuff together and trying to figure out how to teach and communicate material. So from that point, I was like, I know I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And probably I want to be a professor.
Nice.
So I knew I was going to need some more education to do that. So that's why I kind of was, slowly knocking away at my degree. Yeah. Always been interested in theology. Of course, I'm not doing history anymore. I'm not sure, do I want to teach theology? I don't know, but I'm just interested in theology. That's the kind of stuff I was reading, kinds of things that I get excited about, putting things together and thinking through these kinds of things. So, finishing my master's degree, and then at the end of that degree, going, well, I know I need my doctoral degree if I'm going to teach in college. So that took me to Europe. So I went to the International Baptist Theological Seminary in Prague of the Czech Republic.
Wow.
I didn't know that. Why did I feel like I should have known that? I didn't know that. Oh, here we go. I'm learning stuff new. There you go. That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. There was a connection with a couple of the professors at Fuller who went over and taught there as kind of guest lecturers, and they kind of pointed me toward it and said, hey, you're kind of like an Anabaptist. The IBTS is trying to be kind of an Anabaptist school for Europeans. They're Baptists. They were started by the Southern Baptists, but they're kind of trying to move away from Southern Baptist fundamentalism and recapture their Anabaptist roots, which is where the Baptists came from in the first place.
Right.
The Anabaptists. So I was studying there. They had an arrangement with the University of Wales. So Wales was the degree, granted my degree, but it was the faculty at the seminary who kind of walked with me through the process. And so we did that for a couple of years. I went over there and sat in a library and read books and began writing, because that's what you do in a British degree is just research. I mean, the first year I had to figure out what's my research project and present that and so forth. And the second year was just deepening that and chasing it down.
So what did you write on?
I was trying to think about the intersection of, trying to do peace, but violence and religion.
Oh,
that's kind of
that's really cool.
My intersection. So my dissertation focused on Mennonite church discipline and how that remained in some ways violent, even though Mennonites were against putting people to death. So it's like, good, we're not beheading people with for being accused of heresy and so forth, right? But are there ways that Mennonites, as they were trying to do church discipline, they often used what was called shunning, excluding people from the community. So
exclusion.
You've been whatever, and we're not going to allow you to take communion. We're not going to do business with you. We're not going to talk to you. It could be kind of done in those kinds of ways. And I was trying to get at ways that actually still remains kind of violent and beholden to the ways of violence, rather than being a pathway of peace. So I was trying to research that, show that, drawn on the work of René Girard and his idea about scapegoating and how we get beholden to make scapegoats and
that's good
stuff like that. So that's kind of where my doctoral dissertation went.
Yeah. So I guess on that, I do have a question, maybe, because a lot of people maybe just hear you say that and say, oh, that's cool, and then leave an academic level. So what kind of, like, from what you learned during that time, what areas in our society or in our world do you see that happening besides just the church? Maybe certain examples of that. Oh, if I could put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, gosh, it happens all over the place. But the reason I decided to study that in the church is because I think that we as Christians need to be self-critical before or as much as we are critical of what we see around us.
That's really good.
Because if we spend our time pointing fingers at people around us, at the world, at people who don't know any better, that just leaves us judgmental and
with
high
big
and mighty,
giant
right?
planks in our eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really good, actually.
So
that's really
trying to look at the plank in our eye and say, well, we think we're doing this, but maybe we're not doing as well as we could, and maybe we could do. Maybe we could do discipline, or maybe it's just in some ways it's the way we react and relate to one another. Can we do that better? Can we do it in a more forgiving way? Can we do it in a way that's also forgiving and accountable? Right? Because forgiveness sometimes just means to people, I'll sweep it all under the carpet and don't make a big deal about it. Yeah. There are times that we need to make a deal.
It needs to be acknowledged.
Some accountability is necessary. But that's part of a word you used earlier too, justice, right? Biblical justice is a justice that says, how do we make things right between us? Yeah. And to do that often means we've got to name the wrong, we've got to own up to it, and we have to find ways to heal and restore.
Yeah.
Right. So, scapegoating and
Yeah,
so
no,
forth
that's
happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's exacerbated by our lovely social media, which does podcasting count as a social
We
media
wrestle with
thing?
that all the time. Are we contributing to the problem? Are we?
Yeah. You know,
that's real.
we like to throw stones and darts at other folks, and I think we do that, and often we do it as a way to feel good about ourselves, to establish our identity, because our identity is so fragile, and so learning to receive our identity from Jesus, a different kind of way, a way that's not established over against somebody else. By putting them down, I know that I'm up. Like, you don't need that. Jesus says, I just love you the way you are.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we can learn to dwell in that place of being loved and know that we're beloved, it can change the way we do life together.
Yeah.
Which is the kingdom of God, right?
Yeah.
I always say, like, Pharisee is our default, like, setting as people. It's so easy to become a Pharisee and, like, exclude and look down and make yourself feel better by saying you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So we have to be constantly on guard from becoming a Pharisee.
It's a good word.
Yeah,
it's a good word. I wasn't talking to you, Jeff.
I know it was a good word. I agree with you. Okay, so I learned a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I learned a lot.
Yeah. So I would say this is, can you take us along now with, so you finished your doctoral studies and everything. Because I know other things happened also after that as well.
Okay. I'll try to get us.
You went to Croatia at some point, I feel like.
That was just a vacation this past year. That was an anniversary trip. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, we
that was
don't
a
need
big
to
celebration.
talk about that.
But before that, we as I was finishing my doctoral study, I wasn't quite done. I was still kind of writing my dissertation. We'd returned to the States, and the question was, okay, now I think I'm ready to step into this professor thing, right? I'm going to finish my dissertation, and who's hiring, and where am I going to? And so I started putting out applications to whatever job openings I saw that I thought I could apply for, and nothing was happening. And I thought to myself, one of the things I could use is some actual teaching experience. Like, if they look at my resume, they're like, okay, yeah, he's got his doctorate and so forth, but have you ever been in the classroom? Like, I really hadn't been in the classroom much because I wasn't in that kind of a program, right? It was just a research program. So I was like, I need to get some teaching experience. Where's that gonna come from? And we circled back to MCC, Mennonite Central Committee, and Cheryl actually was on the website one day looking for. This is the story. Looking for the job that she wanted to do next. And then she runs across this thing that says, hey, there's a position teaching peace in Zambia.
Wow.
And wouldn't that be a great position for Peter to take? And so I looked at it and went, yeah, actually, this would be good. I could get some experience. I love working at peace and helping people understand that. So we signed up with MCC, went with them to Zambia in southern Africa for 4 years. Then while we were there, the next question is, what's going to happen next? You're going to return to the States, and then what? And I heard about a job opening at Fresno Pacific. One of the faculty was retiring, who worked in the Center for Peacemaking. And I was like, hey, I'm a peace guy, and they need a peace person. And so I applied for the job, which I did not get. But in the midst of that search, they said, you're not the best qualified to do this particular job, but we have another position that we think we'd like to invite you to do. So they did that, took a risk on me, and I got that job and then taught there for 12 years till just this past 6 months ago. Yeah. And I ended my tenure there. When I was laid off, I became too expensive for the school, so they couldn't afford me anymore. So I'm currently unemployed. I grew a beard to look like it, so I'm a little scruffy. My gosh! No, it's just
the beard is tight.
My beard is my Christmas beard. I do this about annually around Christmas time. I grow it out. It'll probably be gone by Sunday, actually.
You need to let that thing keep going.
No, I love it. It bugs Cheryl a lot and bugs me a little bit. So if both of us are not happy, it's got to go.
Oh man.
So
okay, so you want to cut right now and take a break?
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and take a break, and then we'll be coming back at you. Peter, thanks so much for letting us in a little bit into your life, and we'll be right back.
Great.
wouldn't actually look, hey, Peter, blah, 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 blah. That's going to be hard because then the angle's over
but
here.
don't worry about looking at the camera.
Is it awkward if my back? I don't want my back turned toward them, though.
Sean, your back? Come on, dog.
My head.
You're fine. They can see you right there.
No, but like, even then, like, what is it? Side of my face or is it my face?
The side of your face is fine. Okay. It's lovely. I've seen all the sides.
You're looking at it right now.
So, what John wants to do, the camera here.
Yeah.
So one camera here.
Honest to God. Yeah. Anyway.
Lord.